A freezing wind howled through the streets as Amelia pulled her worn-out coat tighter around her frail body. She had spent another restless night on a park bench, her body aching from the cold. It wasn't supposed to be this way. Just a year ago, she had a job, a small apartment, and a sense of stability. But life had a cruel way of taking everything in the blink of an eye. A sudden layoff, medical bills piling up, and soon, she found herself with nowhere to go. She had heard about a luxurious hotel nearby, the Grand Royale, a place where the wealthy gathered, where the chandeliers sparkled like diamonds, and where warmth wasn't a luxury, but a given. Desperate for shelter, even if just for a few minutes, she hesitated outside its towering entrance. Maybe if I explain my situation, someone will understand, she thought, summoning every ounce of courage. As she stepped forward, the golden doors swung open, and a well-dressed man in a tailored suit strode out. Before she could take another step, the hotel's security guard blocked her path. "Excuse me, miss, but you can't be here," the guard said firmly, eyeing her tattered clothes with a look of disdain. "Please, I just need to warm up for a little while. I won't cause any trouble," Amelia pleaded, her voice trembling as much from desperation as from the cold. The guard shook his head. "This is a five-star establishment. We don't allow people like you inside. People like you." The words stung more than the biting wind. Humiliated, Amelia stepped back as the man in the suit glanced at her indifferently before walking away. No one cared. No one ever did. Shuffling away from the entrance, her stomach twisted with hunger, and a painful lump formed in her throat. She had hoped for kindness, but had received only rejection. Little did she know, the very next day, someone completely unexpected would walk into her life and change everything. The next morning, Amelia woke up to the same harsh reality. The cold had seeped into her bones, and her body ached from sleeping on the unforgiving concrete. Wrapping her thin blanket around herself, she rubbed her hands together for warmth. She had no money, no food, and nowhere to go. The rejection from the hotel the night before still weighed heavily on her heart. As she sat on the sidewalk, watching people rush past without a second glance, she noticed an elderly man struggling with his cane near the hotel entrance. He looked frail, his hands trembling as he tried to maintain his balance. Without thinking twice, Amelia pushed herself up and rushed over to him. "Sir, are you okay?" she asked gently, holding out her hand to support him. The old man looked up, surprise flickering in his tired eyes. I lost my balance. These old legs aren't what they used to be. Here, let me help you." She carefully took his arm, steadying him. "Are you headed inside the hotel?" "Yes, but I left something in my car. Could you help me get it?" Amelia nodded, guiding him toward a black luxury car parked near the entrance. She helped him retrieve his coat from the back seat, and then walked him to the golden doors of the Grand Royale. Just as she turned to leave, a familiar voice cut through the air. "You again?" It was the same security guard from last night, his face twisted in annoyance. "Didn't I tell you not to hang around here?" Amelia stepped back instinctively, fear creeping into her chest. "I was just helping him." "I don't care," the guard snapped. "This isn't a place for beggars." Before Amelia could respond, the elderly man straightened up and turned to face the guard. His voice, though calm, carried authority. "Is this how you treat someone who helped me?" The guard faltered. "Yes, sir, I didn't mean." "Do you even know who I am?" the old man asked, narrowing his eyes. The guard paled. "Of course, Mr. Whitmore." Then you should know that I don't tolerate cruelty," Mr. Whitmore said firmly. He turned to Amelia, his expression softening. "Young lady, what's your name?" "Amelia," she answered hesitantly. "Amelia, would you join me for breakfast?" Her eyes widened in shock. No one had ever invited her anywhere before. I don't think they'd allow someone like me inside." Mr. Whitmore's lips curved into a small smile. "Then it's a good thing I own this place." The security guard's face drained of color. Amelia, still in disbelief, followed Mr. Whitmore through the golden doors that had once been closed to her. Amelia followed Mr. Whitmore into the grand lobby of the hotel, her heart pounding in disbelief. She had spent so many nights outside, staring at these golden doors, never imagining she would step foot inside. The marble floors gleamed under the crystal chandeliers, and the scent of fresh flowers filled the air. The hotel staff glanced at her curiously, their eyes flickering from her worn-out clothes to Mr. Whitmore, who walked beside her with a composed demeanor. The security guard from before stood frozen in place, his face tight with regret. "Mr. Whitmore, shall I prepare your usual table?" A well-dressed maitre d' asked with a polite bow. "Yes, and make sure Miss Amelia is treated as my guest," Mr. Whitmore instructed. The maitre d' nodded quickly, leading them toward a private section of the luxurious restaurant. Amelia could barely process what was happening. Just last night, she had been thrown out of this very place, and now she was being led inside with the hotel owner himself. They settled at a table by a large window overlooking the city. Amelia hesitated, feeling out of place. She shifted uncomfortably, conscious of her worn-out clothes against the pristine white tablecloth. Sensing her discomfort, Mr. Whitmore smiled reassuringly. "You must be hungry." She nodded shyly. "Order anything you like," he said, handing her the elegant menu. Amelia's hands trembled as she took it. The dishes listed were beyond anything she had ever imagined eating. Exotic breakfasts, fresh juices, and pastries that looked straight out of a dream. But she was too nervous to order. Mr. Whitmore noticed and turned to the waiter. "Bring a full breakfast spread for my guest, and a fresh cup of tea for me." The waiter nodded and disappeared. Amelia's eyes watered slightly. She couldn't remember the last time someone had cared for her like this. "Why are you helping me?" she asked finally, her voice barely above a whisper. Mr. Whitmore leaned back in his chair, his gaze thoughtful. "Because I know what it's like to be where you are." She blinked in surprise. "You do?" He nodded. "Many years ago, I was homeless too. I lost everything in a bad investment. I slept on park benches, begged for food, and was treated like I didn't exist." His voice grew distant, as if recalling painful memories. "One day, a kind stranger took me in, gave me a meal, and helped me get back on my feet. That act of kindness changed my life." Amelia listened in awe. She had never imagined that a man as powerful as Mr. Whitmore had once been in her position. "And now," he continued, "I help others whenever I can. And today, I want to help you." Tears welled up in Amelia's eyes. She opened her mouth to speak, but before she could, the waiter arrived, setting down a lavish spread of food. Pancakes drizzled with syrup, fresh fruits, buttery croissants, and steaming eggs filled the table. The sight and aroma overwhelmed her. "Eat," Mr. Whitmore encouraged gently. Amelia picked up a fork with trembling hands and took a bite. The warmth of the food spread through her, chasing away the cold she had felt for so long. She had almost forgotten what it was like to eat a real meal. As she ate, Mr. Whitmore watched her with a kind expression. "Amelia, what do you want in life?" She hesitated. I just want a chance. A chance to work, to live with dignity, to not be looked down upon." Mr. Whitmore nodded. "Then how about this? I offer you a job here at the Grand Royale." Amelia gasped, nearly dropping her fork. "What?" "A fresh start," he said. "A stable income, a roof over your head, and the chance to rebuild your life." Tears spilled down her cheeks. I don't know what to say." "Say yes," he smiled. Through her tears, she nodded. "Yes. Yes, please." Mr. Whitmore's smile widened. "Then welcome to the Grand Royale, Amelia." 1 week later, Amelia stood in front of the grand mirror in her new hotel uniform, an elegant black dress with a golden name tag pinned to her chest. The words, "Amelia, staff member," shimmered under the light. She ran her fingers over the tag, barely believing this was real. Her small but cozy staff room inside the hotel was a far cry from the cold pavement she had once called home. She had a bed, a warm shower, and 3 meals a day. Most importantly, she had a second chance. She took a deep breath, smoothing out her dress, and stepped out of her room, walking towards the restaurant where her shift would begin. As she entered, she felt eyes on her. Curious glances from employees who had once ignored her and guests who wouldn't have spared her a second look before. The same maitre d' who had once dismissed her now offered her a polite nod. "Ready for your first shift, Miss Amelia?" She smiled. "Yes, I am." She carried herself with confidence, greeting guests, assisting waiters, and ensuring everything ran smoothly. She had been given a fair chance, and she wasn't going to waste it. Later that evening, as she arranged fresh flowers at one of the tables, a familiar voice made her turn. "How's your first day going?" Mr. Whitmore stood there, his warm gaze filled with quiet pride. Amelia beamed. "It's amazing. I still can't believe this is real." He chuckled. "Believe it. You earned this." Tears pricked her eyes, but this time, They weren't from sadness. They were from hope. Mr. Whitmore gestured toward his seat. Take a break. Have some tea with me. She hesitated. But my shift. I'm the owner. I say you deserve 5 minutes, he said with a wink. She laughed and sat down as a waiter placed a steaming cup of tea before her. The aroma reminded her of that morning when she had first sat here as his guest, unsure of what her future held. Now, she wasn't just a guest, she belonged here. Amelia took a sip of her tea, warmth spreading through her. You changed my life, she whispered. Mr. Whitmore smiled. Sometimes, all someone needs is a chance. She looked around the beautiful restaurant, at the people, at the lights, at the possibilities ahead of her. For the first time in a long time, she wasn't just surviving, she was living. And she knew, deep in her heart, that this was only the beginning.